Have you ever heard of a revolution without a single gunshot? I mean, a whole totalitarian government, dug in for decades, just toppled. And not over years, but in a matter of weeks. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. The incredible true story of Czechoslovakia's Velvet Revolution.
So yeah, let's just jump right into the big question. How on earth does a 41-year-old regime just crumble in less than 2 weeks? It seems impossible, right? Well, it all kicked off with one single event, a tiny spark in a city that was just holding its breath, waiting for something to happen.
And our story starts right there, on the streets of Prague. A day that was supposed to be about remembering a tragedy from the past ended up creating a brand new future.
Okay, so picture this. It's November 17th, International Students' Day. There's an officially approved student march to remember a Nazi crackdown that happened 50 years before. But pretty quickly the mood shifts. The march turns into a full-blown anti-government protest. And the state's response? It was brutal. They sent in riot police who trapped the demonstrators and beat them.
And what happens next is what's really wild. It's how fast everything just exploded. So at 4 p.m., you've got this sanctioned march of about 15,000 people. A few hours later, it's a scene of total police brutality. But then, the next morning, one piece of information, or, well, misinformation, changes absolutely everything. A rumor starts flying around that a student was killed in the chaos. And that rumor sparks pure outrage, leading students and actors all over the country to go on strike, turning their theaters into these impromptu hubs for the revolution.
So here's the unbelievable twist. No student was actually killed. The whole story was a hoax, something that just got started in all the confusion. But in that kind of atmosphere, one of total fear and distrust of the government, it was completely believable. That false report was the one thing that finally pushed a really hesitant public over the edge. It made them feel like, okay, enough is enough. It's time to stop being afraid. To really get why this one rumor had such a massive impact, we kind of have to zoom out and look at what life was really like in Czechoslovakia back then. Why was the whole country basically a tinderbox just waiting for a spark?
So for 41 years, since 1948, the Communist Party had total control. I mean, look at this list. There were no real opposition parties. If you were a dissident, you were constantly hounded by the secret police. Any little sign of protest could get you fired from your job or kicked out of school. Everything was censored. Books, movies, music. You couldn't travel to the West. And on top of all that, the economy was just completely stuck in the mud. There was this feeling of hopelessness everywhere. But here's the thing. While Czechoslovakia was stuck, the world around it was changing, and fast. You had major reforms happening in Poland and Hungary. And then, and this is the big one, just 1 week before that student protest in Prague, the Berlin Wall came down. People were watching this on TV. It created this powerful feeling that, hey, maybe change isn't just possible, maybe it's inevitable.
All right, so let's get back to the action. You've got this initial spark from the student protest. It's being fed by decades of frustration, and now it's getting fanned by all these changes happening abroad. The whole thing is about to erupt.
Just 3 days after that first violent crackdown, on November 20th, the number of protesters in Prague ballooned to 200,000. The wall of fear was definitely starting to crack.
And if you think that's a huge number, get this. The very next day, it more than doubled. 500,000 people. This wasn't just a student protest anymore. Not by a long shot. This was the people rising up.
I mean, this picture just says it all. This is Letna Plain in Prague. By the end of that first week, this giant open space was just a sea of people. Some estimates say up to 800,000. The entire city, and really the entire country, was out there demanding an end to one-party rule.
Now, a movement this huge needs a voice. It needs leadership. And out of all that energy, 2 key groups emerged. In the Czech part of the country, you had the Civic Forum, which was led by the very famous dissident playwright Václav Havel. And over in Slovakia, you had Public Against Violence. These groups became the face of the revolution, channeling all that anger from the streets into a clear set of political demands.
And this memorial in Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia, just perfectly captures the spirit of what was happening. It wasn't just about complaining anymore. It was about people realizing they had to take responsibility for their own future, to struggle for their own freedom. So you've got hundreds of thousands of people in the streets. You have a new opposition ready to negotiate. What happens when this unstoppable force hits the supposedly immovable object of the communist state? Honestly, the result was just astonishing.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It is breathtaking. 1 week after the first protest, the entire communist leadership just resigns. 3 days later, a general strike basically shuts the whole country down. The very next day, the party says, okay, you win, and agrees to give up its monopoly on power. And just a month after that, Václav Havel, a guy who had been a political prisoner, becomes the president. It was a complete and unbelievably fast transfer of power.
The real tipping point, the move that broke the government's back, was that general strike. An estimated 75% of the entire population took part. I mean, think about it. When 3/4 of your country just stops working to demand change, there's nothing you can do. It's checkmate.
And the people's message could not have been any clearer. I love this poster. It's a direct message to the head of the Communist Party, basically saying, we're going on a general strike. There was no mistaking what they wanted. The regime had lost all its authority.
The way the regime just collapsed so quickly and so peacefully left behind this incredible legacy, right down to the name that we still use to describe it.
And that name is the Velvet Revolution. It was coined almost right away because it just perfectly captured how smooth and peaceful the whole thing was. It was soft, like velvet. No civil war, no violent revenge. Just a quiet, astonishingly gentle handover of an entire political system.
These two images, side by side, they just perfectly symbolize that whole spirit. On the one hand, you have protesters putting flowers into the shields of the riot police, this amazing gesture of nonviolence. And on the other hand, you have the result of that nonviolence, a political prisoner, Václav Havel, now free and about to lead his country.
But maybe the most iconic symbol of all wasn't something you could see, but something you could hear. Protesters would all gather together in the squares, pull out their house keys, and just jingle them all at once. It had this beautiful, powerful double meaning. First, we're unlocking the doors to a free future, and second, it's time for you guys, the communists, to go home.
And here he is, Václav Havel, years later, at the Memorial for the Revolution. It's such a powerful image because it shows just how completely the world had been turned upside down. The prisoner became the president, and the people, who were armed with really nothing more than courage and their house keys, won their freedom.
And that brings us to a final thought. The Velvet Revolution proved to the entire world that even the most dug-in oppressive regimes can fall, and they can fall peacefully. And it makes you wonder, in our world today, for all the struggles for freedom that are still going on, what does the jingling of keys sound like now?